Okay, so what you heard in that weapon attract mode was X saying Fire Wave, which, as we all remember, is my favorite weapon from this game, and overall, right? It was the overall pick, right?
I think so.
It was. It changes sometimes.
That crunch.
God, just so bad.
Thanks, PSP.
So, one of, like I said, the strengths of this game is that the voice cast is really good in English or Japanese. I think they knock it out of the park. Everybody's cast really well. There is one exception to that, which is one of the Mavericks, which kind of gives it a pass, because it's important without being super important. Here we go. I'm using Fire Wave. See if you can figure out how I know that I'm using Fire Wave. A little bit more. There we go. So, rather than what I think would have been the smarter decision of having it so that X says the name of the weapon when you equip it, and then maybe during a charge shot or something like that, it happens pretty much 50-50 anytime you hit the fire button, which is just awful. And, like, this game is really, in some ways, it's almost ramped up. No different in how often you'll be wanting to use your special weapons, so you just never stop hearing it. And it is for all of them. It's not like Fire Wave is a weird one-off thing. Do I forget? No. Okay, I don't. So yeah, you need boots to get in here. I don't think the helmet would also break those top ones. I don't think it matters. It really doesn't. So yeah, that is just absolutely insufferable. But yeah, so Powered Up versus Maverick Hunter X. Aside from, again, like some of those quality of life changes that are predominantly around the Wily Fortress stages, if I'm remembering right. Like, some of those got changed up, which I think is probably for the better. Largely, the original mode is completely untouched. You can still find Magnet Beam in the Lekman stage. You know, nothing there is really different. It's a pretty faithful representation of the original. And then the ones that are there, I will also go on record here, probably saying this in the video for the first time. I don't really like the first Mega Man game that much. I appreciate it, you know, it's still timeless. It started my favorite franchise, so I appreciate it to a degree. I really like the original 6 Robot Masters. Wily's a treat. The weapons are great. Elect Beam is one of my favorite Mega Man weapons of all time. Thunder Beam, I'm sorry. But it's just, it drags, and it's clearly, like, before they had a really good guidebook on what makes the series as good as it is, and there's a reason everybody always references Mega Man 2 as their favorite classic one, if you're going to pick one at all. It's rarely the first. So some of the changes were to kind of help make it a little bit more palatable, and then the secondary new mode is just outstanding. It adds 2 new Robot Masters with completely unique stages, and it also makes it so that anytime you beat a Robot Master with just the... I think it's the Buster. It might be a thing that isn't their weakness weapon. Mega Man does not destroy them, and instead it goes into a cutscene where they... Or, well, sort of... I use cutscene loosely. It's still just in-engine where they kind of kneel down. Defeated instead of exploded, and then Mega Man kind of gestures forward like, hey, are you okay? And then that Robot Master becomes playable, which is just so indescribably good and, like, exactly what you kind of want out of that edition. But they don't become playable in that save file, it's basically its own mode. So not only do you have Classic Mega Man and Powered Up Mega Man modes, you have all 8 of the Robot Masters playable, which is kind of their own campaign. Then you can also get Roll in like 16 different seasonal costumes, and Proto Man.
And like 3 different Mega Man.
Yeah, all of which have slightly different moves. So like one of them has the chargeable Mega Buster and one of them has the slide. So it's just like... completely overloaded with content. It's just outstanding, and it really bums me out that these two released so similarly time frame-wise, and that wasn't an idea that was discussed for both of them, because if I could get this game more or less as it is, with some minor tweaks to the voice acting content, and the ability to maybe play as the Mavericks, like, honestly, I'd even be okay if it was just Classic mode and Revised mode and then Vile mode, which is something that we'll talk about a little bit later. And as a full disclaimer, not part of this Let's Play. I might do it another time. We'll see how that goes, but we just don't have the time to actually do it before Christmas. Sorry. Oh, actually, to date this, as of right now, we're recording this dialogue on December 21st, so if we get it in on time, you're welcome, Merry Christmas. But yeah, like, there's just so many better things in Powered Up by comparison that it makes this one feel kind of dry, and it really is a little bit of a bummer. And you could argue the way Vile works, to preface what I'm about to say, is each Maverick gives him 3 weapons instead of 1, He's got the shoulder cannon, he's got finger bullets, or, a missile of some kind. And then his kneecap gun, which he totally does have in sprite animations, it always happens really quickly. The figure also has it, which I think is great. You have to rip his foot off and put it in a completely different joint just to make it work, and it looks dumb, but I love it because Viola's a war machine and it fits his character. So he plays wildly different, which you could argue is, all of the Robot Masters in Powered Up literally just have, the weapon that you would get from them, and that's all they can do as far as I'm aware. Mm-hmm. With the exception of Gutsman. Gutsman is amazing, but this is getting into stuff where I'd be talking if I were playing that game, so I'll kind of move on. Basically, content-wise, it's just night and day. And then that kind of combines with a bunch of questionable decisions in this one, like voice acting kind of becoming insufferable every time you shoot a special weapon.
Does that happen in Powered Up?
I don't think it does. I'm pretty sure it does not.
I don't... I'd have to go back and check.
I want to say that some of the Robot Masters might do it, but I might also just be thinking of Elecman, and his character kind of dictates it, which makes it a little better. They all have very good personalities in that game. But again, moving away from Powered Up, it's just... So, yeah, between the lack of content in this game versus its partner game, or sister, brother, whatever you want to call it. I'll say brother, fuck it. Between it and the brother game... and then there's the unnecessary changes that you just deal with. So, capsules are in different order of tough. That's just how it is. Which isn't necessarily bad, but again, if someone like me, who's a completely diehard fan, just wants a remake, I don't actually get that.
Right.
You might argue that it's better, but having to start with Flame Mammoth instead of Chill Penguin doesn't feel the best. They actually trivialize certain bosses with their weakness weapons. I know some of them get a lot easier, but in this... I don't know, should I talk about it before?
We'll save it until it shows up.
Yeah, we'll save that specific one until it shows up, but suffice to say it gets needlessly easy in certain spots. But there's also a couple good changes, too. I'll go into it a little bit more, but Electric Spark's Charge Shot is different in this one, and I absolutely love it. So, again, it's kind of a middle ground thing. A lot of the issues start to really showcase... I think closer to the end, and when you're talking about it as a writing or narrative or lore piece, depending on how you want to put it. For whatever reason, this game retcons a lot of stuff that the original intent, as far as I'm aware of this game and Powered Up, were to remake the series entirely. So, we'll test the waters with this and see how it sells, and if people really like it, and then we'll kind of keep going from there. And some of the things that they did with that in mind, provided that is exactly what their goal was at the very beginning, would have made certain changes that were minor now cataclysmically different later on in design and narrative writing and stuff, and I just don't really see the point of any of it. I think the story as it exists from X1 to X8, including the Game Boy ones, is serviceable, not without fault, and the faults that are present would be easily fixable without drastically overhauling anything. And they don't do that. And again, this is probably just a me thing. As somebody that enjoys the game just as much for the narrative as the gameplay, or vice versa, depending on how you want to prioritize it, I really, really dislike that. So
I would be interested in someone asking Inafune if he had plans for what the other story changes would be down the line. Since King shows up in what? 3, 2?
We'll go over that a little bit when I
won't deny that.
I guess, when am I going to talk about it?
Because that's...
We'll save it for the beginning of the next episode so I have more time to do it, because I'm sure I'll go off. But actually, this is kind of a good opportunity. We had Chill Penguin and Flame Mammoth already, who were pretty largely unchanged mechanics-wise. Storm Eagle is the first good example, appropriately, because he's my pick for this game, as far as actual boss fights go, about good mechanical changes. Which also actually kind of ties into some unnecessary changes as well. For example, you can't enter through the bottom of the Death Rogmer in this, and the deck never explodes, which I understand would be harder to do with a 3D model, but fuck you, that's such a good moment, and it's iconic, and why would you change it? Please just try to make that work. Doesn't matter, it already happened. So far, we've seen Storm Tornado and the Gale Wings moves. They're unchanged. Oh, actually, shit, he might not do any of this for the fight. He was being super generous here. I might let him. And we still get the babies, which make an adorable sound. There it is. And now his diving is very similar to Spyro Pegasus, or the Skyver, or whatever the hell the Japanese name is, in X5, wherein he'll dash vertically along the ground, or horizontally along the ground, rather, and then he will also call feathers down during a kind of... I'm assuming around 25% health is when he'll start doing that when he's doing the Gale Wings move, which mixes it up nicely. And those are changes that I do like, just because they're not wildly altering the original gameplay, but they're kind of enhancing it for people that might have thought certain things were too easy. And admittedly, as much as I like Storm Eagle, his fight, unless you don't have the dash boots, is really simple in the original game, so changes like that I think are fine. And they also benefit Vile when he's playing through as well.